It's late. You're lying in bed. The room is dark. You're tired, genuinely tired. You've been tired since 9 p.m. You close your eyes. You try to sleep. And then it starts. The thing you said 3 years ago. The email you forgot to send. Tomorrow's meeting. That conversation you keep replaying. The grocery list. The thing you should have said instead. The thing you probably shouldn't have said at all. Your brain is supposed to be winding down. Instead, it's hosting a conference. So you give up on silence. You put something on. Something familiar. Something you've seen before. And within 10 minutes, maybe less, you're gone. Out cold, sleeping like a child. You wake up 4 hours later to the glow of a screen, and the same movie still playing. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've always wondered, why does that work? Why can't I just sleep like a normal person? Why does my brain need a babysitter? So what is actually going on? Because the answer says something surprising about how your brain was built and what it's secretly craving. Before we get into it, quick question. Why do you think you need background noise to fall asleep? A. My mind goes too quiet and my own thoughts take over. B. I just need something familiar to feel relaxed. C. Complete silence feels unsettling, almost wrong. D. Honestly, I've never thought about why. It just works. Drop your letter in the comments. Here's the thing. All four of those answers are pointing at the same truth. A deeper truth about what your brain is actually doing in the dark and what it needs before it will let you go. We're going to get there. But first, a little science that changes everything. Most people assume that sleep is about switching off. You get tired enough, your brain powers down, you sleep. Simple. But that's not what actually happens. Your brain doesn't switch off to sleep, it shifts into a different mode. And before it will do that, before it will make that shift, it needs to feel one specific thing. Safe. Not comfortable, not tired, safe. Researchers studying sleep onset have found that the brain's threat detection systems need to quiet down before the body will allow deep sleep to begin. You can be exhausted and still not sleep because some part of your brain is still scanning, still watching, still waiting for something it can't name. And that changes everything about why silence doesn't work for you. Here's what's happening when you lie in silence. Your brain has a default mode. Scientists actually call it the default mode network, and it's the system that activates when there's nothing else going on. No task, no input, no distraction. You'd think that would be peaceful. It isn't. The default mode network is where your brain processes unfinished business, unresolved emotions, anxieties you didn't have time to feel during the day, social interactions it's still analyzing, regrets, worries, hypothetical arguments with people who will never know you had them. Silence doesn't empty your mind. It gives your mind the floor. And for a lot of people, that's the last place they want to be. This is why silence feels loud. This is why you can't just lie there and drift off. The moment external input disappears, internal input floods in. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's just doing it at the worst possible time. So you reach for the movie, and something interesting happens. It's not what you think, though. You might assume movies work because they're entertaining, or distracting, or because you just like them. But notice something. It almost always works better with a movie you've already seen. A new movie keeps you awake. A familiar one knocks you out. That's the clue. Your brain doesn't need entertainment. It needs just enough input to stop generating its own. A familiar movie does exactly that. It gives your default mode network something to latch onto, a narrative it already knows, voices it recognizes, a world it doesn't need to analyze. It's like giving a restless child a toy they've played with 100 times. Nothing new to figure out, nothing threatening, just the comforting hum of something known. Your brain grabs the handrail of the story and slowly, without you even noticing, lets go. You're not escaping your thoughts. You're giving your brain a babysitter so the rest of you can finally rest. But there's another layer. And this one goes deeper. Think about what's actually in a movie. Voices, human voices, conversation, the sound of other people existing nearby. That's not a small thing. Your brain has spent hundreds of thousands of years evolving in groups. You slept in groups. You were protected by groups. Silence at night, real, total silence, meant one of two things. Either everyone was asleep and safe, or everyone was gone and you were alone in the dark. For most of human history, being alone in the dark was dangerous. Predators, isolation, exposure. Your nervous system hasn't caught up with the fact that you live in an apartment with a deadbolt. When you hear voices, calm, familiar voices, even from a screen, something ancient in your brain receives a signal. There are people nearby. You are not alone. You are not the last one awake. You can rest now. The movie isn't just filling silence, it's sending a primal message. You are safe. Your so-called bad sleep habit is actually an ancient survival response. Your brain isn't weak. It's running very old software. But here's where it gets personal, and I want you to sit with this one. For many people, the need for noise at night isn't just neurological, it's emotional. There's a specific kind of person who absolutely cannot sleep in silence. And it's not always about anxiety or an overactive mind. Sometimes it's about something quieter than that, something they don't have a word for: loneliness. Not necessarily obvious loneliness, not the kind where you know you're lonely, but a low-level background hum of not quite enough connection. Days that are busy but not full. Conversations that are fine but not deep. A life that looks okay from the outside, but feels strangely hollow once the lights go off. Because here's what happens at night. All the things you kept yourself too busy to feel, they come back. The distance in a relationship. The friendships that have faded. The sense that you're moving through life next to people rather than with them. Silence doesn't create that feeling. It just stops drowning it out. And the movie fills the gap. It gives you presence, warmth. The feeling of not being quite so alone. Your sleep habit might not be about sleep at all. It might be trying to tell you something about your days. Now, 3 people, 3 stories about sleep, silence, and what happens in the dark. 2 of these I created. One is based on documented research. Your job is to figure out which one is real. Drop your guess in the comments. Story 1. A woman named Claire, 43, divorced 2 years ago after a 15-year marriage. Before the divorce, she'd always slept fine, in silence, no problem. Afterward, she couldn't sleep without the television. She tried everything: pills, meditation, white noise. Nothing worked, like voices. One night, she realized she wasn't watching the TV. She was listening to it. She needed to hear people in the house. She needed to not be the only one. Story 2. A man named Daniel, 31, software engineer, decided to cut screens completely for 30 days to improve his sleep. The first week was brutal. Intrusive thoughts, hours of lying awake, a strange rising panic he couldn't explain. By week 2, something shifted. The silence started to feel less like a threat and more like a space. By week 3, he was sleeping better than he had in years. But he also noticed something else. He was thinking thoughts he'd been avoiding for months, things he needed to face. The silence hadn't been the problem. It had been the solution he was running from. Story 3. A sleep clinic in the Netherlands studied a group of patients with chronic insomnia. All of them used screens to fall asleep. Researchers tried the expected interventions: screen removal, sleep hygiene protocols, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Results were modest. Then, almost by accident, one researcher noticed that the patients who improved most dramatically weren't the ones who'd cut screens. They were the ones who'd made significant social changes in their lives, joined a group, repaired a relationship, started therapy, moved closer to family. Their screen dependency didn't disappear, it just stopped being necessary. One of those is rooted in real research. It's Story 3. Studies on loneliness in sleep, including research published in sleep science journals, have consistently found that social connection is one of the strongest predictors of sleep quality. More than screen use, more than caffeine, more than exercise. When people feel genuinely less alone, they sleep better. The screen was never the problem. It was the solution to a different problem entirely. So here's the question I want to leave with you. What if the goal isn't to learn how to sleep in silence? What if the real question is, why does silence feel like something to escape from? What is it about your own mind, in the dark, with no distractions, no input, no noise, that feels threatening? What are you not quite ready to sit with? I'm not going to answer that, because only you know. Here's what I want you to take from this. You are not broken. You don't have a sleep problem. You have a brain that is doing something very human, reaching for connection, for safety, for the feeling of not being alone in the dark. That's not a flaw in your wiring. That's your wiring working exactly as it should. The movie, the voices, the familiar sounds. Your brain found a gentle way to give itself what it needs. There's nothing wrong with that. But maybe, just maybe, it's worth asking what you could give yourself during the day that your brain wouldn't need to go searching for at night. More real presence, more actual connection, more moments where you feel genuinely seen by someone who isn't a screen. The fact that you need warmth and voices and the feeling of not being the only one awake, that's not a weakness. That's the most human thing about you. If something in this video landed for you, leave a comment. Tell me which letter you picked at the start, or tell me which story you thought was real. And if you want to keep understanding yourself a little better, you know where to find me.